They say we pass hundreds of people every single day. At the market, on the street, on the train. And most of them, we forget that there's always one person who becomes unforgettable. Even if you never speak, even if you don't know their name. For me, that person took the 9:12 train. Every morning, same route, same seat, same moment of quiet. It started with nothing, like most things that matter. Just a glance, a pattern, a rhythm that felt safe. The first time I noticed him, he was sitting in the third row from the front. Black coat, gray scarf. A battered notebook resting on his lap, and a pencil that danced between his fingers. His head was always turned to the window, not sleeping, not scrolling, just watching the world go by like it told him stories. I sat behind him for weeks before I ever saw his face. I memorized the shape of his shoulders first, the way he leaned slightly to the left when the train curved, the way his right foot tapped when it was running behind, the way he held his breath during tunnels. It sounds strange, I know, but when you live in a world that feels too loud, a quiet routine is something sacred. And he became sacred to me. At first I told myself it was nothing, a crush, a passing phase, but he kept showing up. And I kept noticing more, like how he wore headphones but never pressed play, or how he flipped to the same page in his notebook every morning and just stared, like he was trying to remember what he'd written there, or maybe forget it. One morning, it rained. The kind of cold, sideways rain that slaps your cheeks and seeps into your sleeves. I ran for the train, coat soaked, hair stuck to my face. I almost didn't go. Almost stayed in bed that day. But I didn't, and when I got on the train, dripping and shivering, there he was. He turned slightly more than usual and looked right at me and smiled. It wasn't big, barely there, but it was enough. It was the first time I saw the color of his eyes. Deep, soft brown, the kind that made you think of warmth, of worn-in coffee mugs, of autumn. I smiled back. Nothing was said. Nothing needed to be. Weeks passed like that. Him, me, the train. We still hadn't spoken, not once, but things changed in small ways. He started boarding a little later, so we could walk on at the same time. I stopped bringing books, so I could glance up more often. We exchanged nods, smiles, occasionally a quiet laugh when the conductor said something ridiculous over the speakers. He never wore anything flashy, always simple, muted colors, scuff shoes, fingers that looked like they played guitar once, that hadn't touched one in a while. There was a quiet sadness to him. Not loud, not dramatic. Just something softened, something stitched together. And I didn't want to fix him. I just wanted to sit beside him. Maybe write something with him. Maybe just be in the same silence. Then one morning, something changed. The train jolted harder than usual when it started, and my bag slipped from my lap. Books, headphones, a pen, my phone, all hit the floor. I scrambled, cheeks hot with embarrassment, hands fumbling. And before I could reach them, he was there, kneeling beside me, picking everything up quietly. No questions, no awkward jokes. He handed me my things, one by one. And when he passed me the last item, my pencil, he paused, looked at it, and whispered, "Same kind I use." It was the first time I heard his voice, soft, low, like it belonged in a poem read before sleep. I nodded, stunned. He nodded too, then sat back down in his seat. We didn't say another word that day, but something invisible between us had shifted. The next morning, I found a note tucked under the strap of my bag, folded neatly, plain paper, no name. It's always the quiet ones who write the loudest things. I stared at it for a long time, then wrote a reply. Nothing much. Silence isn't empty. It's full of words waiting to be safe. I folded my note, and the next day, I slipped it under the corner of his notebook as I walked by. And that was how we began. Every day, a new note, no texts, no social media, no names, just paper, ink, connection. He wrote in metaphors, left drawings of rain on windows, half-written stanzas. I started printing poems I'd never shared, leaving stories I'd never finished. And somehow, without names, without knowing each other's lives, we knew each other's minds. He once wrote, "You feel like a Sunday morning before the rest of the world wakes up," and I cried when I read it. He once left a drawing of a train with one seat circled and a heart where mine would be. I left a line that said, "I think I could fall for someone I've never heard laugh." He replied, "You already have. So have I." And then he was gone. And then he was gone. No warning, no goodbye. Just an empty seat on the 912. At first, I thought he missed it. We all do sometimes. Maybe he overslept. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was on a different carriage. I waited, tried not to look too obvious, kept glancing at the doors, kept my notebook open, pencil ready, just in case, but his seat stayed empty. And the train kept moving. The next day, still nothing. And the day after that, still no him, no note, no sketch, no poem, just a seat that somehow made everything else feel hollow. I should have been realistic. It's not like I knew him. Not really. Not his name, not his job, not where he lived, not even his stop, but I knew his soul. And when you lose a connection like that, one that lives in silence and scribbles, the world feels off, too loud, too harsh, too fast. I still rode the 912, still sat near the third row, still brought notes I never gave to anyone. The conductor stopped checking my pass. The train doors opened slower. Even the city felt less alive. I missed him, but more than that, I missed who I was when I was near him. Soft, hopeful, braver. It's a strange kind of pain, isn't it? To miss a version of yourself that only existed in someone else's presence. A week later, I found something, not a note. A book, his book, wedged behind the armrest on his seat, deliberately placed. Wrapped in a brown paper cover. Inside was a page torn from his notebook. Just one line. "Sometimes you have to disappear to see who comes looking." My breath caught in my throat. I looked around, spun in my seat, scanned every row, but he wasn't there. Only his echo. Only the trail of something half told. I didn't know what to do, so I read the book. Every night, a few pages. Under a blanket, with chamomile tea, reading like it might bring him back. It wasn't published. It wasn't fancy. Just a collection of short poems, handwritten and scanned, but they were beautiful. And in one of them, I found my words. Silence isn't empty. It's full of words waiting to be safe. He kept my line, built a poem around it, dedicated the piece to the girl with the quiet fire. That was me. That was US. And then one day, weeks later, he came back. Just like that. Same train, same seat, same coat, but his eyes were different. Tired, raw, like he'd been somewhere far and heavy. He didn't have his notebook. He didn't look at me. He just sat, hands on his knees, staring at the floor. I didn't know what to say. How do you ask a stranger if they're okay when they've carried your heart in their pocket for weeks? I didn't speak. I just placed something on his seat when I left. A note. Just 2 words. I stayed. The next day, he was there again, and this time he looked at me, not past me, not through me, but at me. And for a moment, we both stopped breathing. He stood, walked over, held out a folded piece of paper, then sat down across from me. It said, "I never left you." I just didn't know how to come back. We didn't speak out loud for the rest of the ride. But our eyes, they said everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, not from sadness, But because hope had made its way back into my bloodstream, and I didn't want to lose it again, the next morning he was already waiting. He gestured for me to sit beside him. We didn't talk, didn't touch, but our shoulders rested close enough to hum. Halfway through the ride, he opened a new notebook, blank, fresh. He slid it between us, wrote the first words in the corner of the page, "This is for us," and then he handed me the pencil. I stared at it, took a breath, and wrote, "Tell me everything slowly." That became our ritual. We shared one notebook, passed it back and forth on the train, one sentence each morning, a conversation in fragments, a love story in soft pieces, no pressure, no expectations, just a safe place to be seen. Eventually I asked, "Why did you leave?" His answer came 4 days later. My dad passed, and I didn't know how to grieve around strangers, but I realized, you were never a stranger. We began sitting together after we got off, coffee in paper cups, park benches, morning fog. One day, he told me his name. Elias, Ifit, soft, slightly old-fashioned, like poetry. I told him mine. He said it like he'd heard it in his dreams. Months passed, seasons changed, but the 912 became ours. The capsule where time didn't rush, where love wasn't loud, where the tiniest things mattered. A shared scarf on cold mornings, a hand squeeze when the train was too crowded, a sleepy lean against a shoulder at the end of a long week. The world still rushed, still roared, still tried to drown out the quiet things, but we had our silence. We had each other. We had a story written without speaking. And I think that's the kind of love people forget to wish for. The kind that doesn't begin with a kiss, but with a pencil and a glance and a seat across the aisle. We never called it dating, never labeled it, didn't need to. Our world was built in quiet gestures, a shared muffin on rainy mornings, books exchanged with underlined pages, music played through split headphones, heads leaned against windows together. He never asked to hold my hand, he just did, and I never pulled away. One morning, I arrived to find him holding a thermos and 2 cups. "Peppermint helps slow the world down," he said. We sat on the train floor that day, backs against the wall, people stepping around us, and we didn't care. We just sipped, smiled, and let our knees rest against each other's. A week later, he wrote in the notebook, "If the world ends tomorrow, I want to be on this train with you. Between the tunnels, between the lines, between the parts of us that are still becoming." And I replied, "Let's make forever feel like this." One Friday, we missed our stop, on purpose. Stayed on the train until the very last station. Got off and walked through streets we didn't know. Bought secondhand records. Ate hot noodles from paper bowls. Danced in an empty park to the sound of passing cars. We didn't take pictures, didn't post it anywhere. It wasn't for the world. It was just for us. He eventually asked me out. Properly. We laughed when he did, because really, we were already in it. He said, "But I want to take you to dinner and not have to say goodbye at the train doors." So we did. Dinner turned into walks, walks into weekends, weekends into holidays. And slowly his life folded into mine. He told me more about his mother who read him poetry every night, about the scars on his knuckles from playing guitar too hard, about the night he cried on the kitchen floor when his father died, and how he never wanted to be known for his pain. He sometimes on quiet nights, we take it down, read it